Hey everyone, welcome back to Coffee and Dates podcast, where we drink coffee and eat dates and discuss certain topics. I'm
Welcome
Adil.
back. I'm Fatima.
Yeah, how's it going?
Pretty good. Don't have many plans this weekend, but last weekend we had a lot of plans.
Yeah. Last weekend we did, so we didn't get a chance to record. But this week we're going to talk about something that I think is a topic. It's been a hot topic for quite a while now. I'd say, I think ever since the pandemic started, it's been like kind of prevalent, and that is toxic masculinity. And I kind of want to center this discussion around, I think, the figure that is driving most of these discussions, who's like the figure of toxic masculinity, whether you believe he is toxic or not, is Andrew Tate. And I was just kind of curious, as a Muslim woman from the outside looking in, I'm sure when you're scrolling through your Instagram and TikTok or whatever, you're not seeing clips of Andrew Tate. So what are your thoughts of him as a Muslim woman?
I mean, from what I've seen of him, they're not. I mean, I don't view him very highly, to be honest. I feel like he demeans women. He says things that I don't know, devalues women a lot and like what they're capable of and what they bring to the world, which apparently, I mean, at least from the view, like from the viewpoint of, or the clips at least that have gone viral enough for me to be able to see him, he sees women as like, like their usefulness is two things basically in the world is like, being intimate with them and having babies, like, so, I don't view him very highly. I don't really, obviously, like I'm not super, like, I don't follow him. I don't know what he's like up to. I just see whatever's in the mainstream news about him. So that's kind of what I view of him. Like I just I he's just a part of the world that I don't even.
So you would say your opinion of him is like non-existent?
No, I mean, I like, at least, so the thing is, like, I don't follow him enough to know, like, what his active viewpoint is right now or how he's changed or anything like that. I mean, so that's why I'm hesitant to be like, oh, I just hate the guy. Like, I don't know what he thinks at this moment. I don't know how he's changed, but at least from the clips that I've seen of him from when he was, like, going pretty viral and, his clips would always show up on my newsfeed, they weren't like I didn't view him very positively. Like I don't think he's like a positive figure for like I wouldn't want like my children to ever watch him or believe a lot of the stuff that he says. And I think he there were times I think like even sometimes it would show up on your phone and I'd like laugh about it and stuff, and because some of the stuff he says actually make a lot of logical sense, and but the thing is he sandwiches it with like crazy. Again, but this is from like the 1% of clips I've seen. So that's just kind of how I see it.
Yeah, like you haven't listened to his podcast.
Exactly.
Never like, long form content. Like whatever you're seeing is like the most viral clips going. I think you said something interesting back there. You were saying at this moment, you don't know what he thinks. So the thing about Andrew Tate is that, he's publicly converted to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's really interesting, I find, is that, there will be clips of his that go viral now that are like diametrically opposed to what, a Muslim is quote unquote supposed to believe. But then those clips are going viral now, but that clip or that, video may have been taken way before he became a Muslim. So I think it really makes it like magnifies how divisive he can be. So in our Muslim community, there are people that are saying like, oh, I think this is kind of ridiculous, but to say that his conversion is a farce, he's like doing this to get more followers or whatever. And then there are people also who are on the extreme opposite. They're like, oh, well, he's Muslim now, so we need to completely forget and forgive everything he may have said or did. Mm-hmm. And I think,
And you think that side is an extreme to say he's Muslim now, we should forget and forgive?
I think there's a balance in between that. Yes, like your sins are, forgiven. Everything. You have a clean slate when you convert, right? That's what we believe. When you convert, you have a clean slate with God. But like you're still responsible for like what you may have done, before that. So like let's say someone had murdered someone. I'm not saying he's a murderer or anything like that, but I'm saying if someone had murdered someone who was non-Muslim and they were non-Muslim, then they converted to Islam. in the law of the land, they still need to answer for that. There needs to be some form of justice, right? So it doesn't forgive that. That's what I'm saying. So like, you know, and just because someone converts to Islam doesn't automatically make them quote unquote role model either. So I think that those two extremes are kind of just there. And I think he's in a very interesting position where he has a ton of influence, and I don't know what he's trying to do with the influence, whether it's to make money, whatever, but he is in an interesting position where he has a lot of power, and he can, you know, use that power for good. And I don't know, I personally don't, you know, watch his podcasts. I don't listen to his interviews. All I see is stuff that may pop up on my feed, and you know, a lot of the stuff is just hilarious, you know. So and I enjoy the hilarious stuff, but there are also, I understand that there are young men who are scrolling through their TikToks, Instagram, YouTube shorts, and they're seeing these clips and they're like, this guy makes sense, you know, like, and then it can really muddy the waters when you're you see some one clip of him making sense, and then you may assume that like, oh, everything he says must make sense then, and then you just use this person as like your quote unquote teacher, where he's not like qualified for something like that, right? He's a personality, he's a social media personality, and I think in order to become a social media personality in today's day and age, you have to be some sort of extreme. You can't make sense to a logical person, you know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, there's like female equivalents of Andrew Tate. There's this one girl, she's like this like white girl who, I think her name's like just Pearly Things or something like that. And, you know, she like talks about how like, you know, women shouldn't vote, and like, I don't know, she says some crazy stuff. And, you know, I can't help it. Every time she's on, like, any news segment, I always watch it because it's just so, like, funny to watch. And it's so interesting to watch. But, like, that's why I click on it, because her views are just so insane that I love clicking on it, you know? So that's what gets views. And, I mean, he definitely figured that out very fast.
Yeah, it's, like, interesting. Like, you have to be as controversial as possible. So, like, you get people who are so mad at you, but then you also have people who are so in agreement with you, like that they're passionate about it enough to share it, you know? If you say something like, you know, like women should be able to vote, and, you know, they should be on our masjid board, then
yeah,
like,
that's no one's gonna care.
No one's gonna be like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I really believe in this. Like,
yeah.
No, that's like it's not gonna do anything. But then if you're like, oh, you know, like the woman should be able to lead in prayer, you'll find women who are like very like, yes, like I want this is what I want, like their extreme beliefs, but then, you know, there will be people like, hey, women shouldn't belong in the masjid, and then there'll be guys like, yeah, like this is the right thing. So I just think there's a balance, and social media doesn't really cater to measured thinking.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not even, I mean, yeah, social media and just people in general, you know, like, I mean, this is what I'm talking about, is like, I'm not going to click on, you know, someone who's talking about anything normal. I'm going to click on this girl who thinks women shouldn't vote. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting that she thinks that. And I love listening to the logic of it too. It's just so interesting to listen to. Obviously, I don't believe that at all, but it's just so fascinating to listen to. And I can see someone going through like a rabbit hole of like, wait a minute, this person might actually make sense.
Especially young people who like, who are still like, their minds are very malleable. They can think a lot of different things at a certain age. Many I like we have like thumbnails like, women shouldn't vote. Like,
yeah, you know, I remember there was like this girl I showed you. She would make TikToks about how like she'd be like, she'd have this very like weirdly cheerful disposition, and she'd be like, like, ladies, like, find your like husband another wife, and like, this is what you will be so much happier. And it was so creepy to watch, and I watched all of her videos, and I was like, what is wrong with this girl? Me and my friends would all like send it to each other, like, what is wrong with this lady? And then I showed it to you, and you were like, wait a minute, she's a comedian.
Yeah, she's a stand-up comedian,
and I never realized that.
She's a stand-up comedian in New York, and her husband's also a stand-up comedian in New York.
Yeah.
So I think they're just hacking.
She's trolling.
Yeah,
like
they're hacking the algorithm. She's like feeding into the crazy people who believe in this kind of stuff,
and the people who are like, "What is wrong with you?" So it was really interesting. Yeah, and that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe we should take a page from their book. Maybe we're too moderate.
We're too measured. That's why we have like 100 followers.
No, we appreciate everyone. Thank you, everyone, for following us. We really appreciate it. It's been
really cool.
Yeah, but no, I think anyways, this whole toxic masculinity thing, like it's a problem with both genders. I think, there are like men obviously contributing to it and women contributing to it too, just like, these two examples, like, are the Just Pearly things. I think that's her name. I hope that's her name and not someone else, but add like her and like, just people who are kind of, trying to like, support that side as women. I think they're also just, a big problem with it too. But I also think this is, a reaction to what has been going on in the world. I think like you kind of just, you talked about it before, but like there's a reason why this sudden like red pill movement, everything has started in the last few years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if it's been started in the last few years, but I know it's become a lot more prevalent, I think, in the last few years, because I think there was a big push to like I don't know if the right word is like effeminate men, like make them into like more like, hey, like we're going to take away some of your like your traits of being what a man is. Like, hey, like, and like make it more like men, you need to be more feminist. Like you need to, let me think about this. What was I saying?
No, like, so you're saying there was like a push to like effeminate men?
Not effeminate, like, but basically just take away. I felt like there was a push to kind of take away like what it means to be a man. Like, you need to be a quote unquote woke feminist man. Like you need to really support the women in a certain way.
So why is that effeminating a man though?
I don't mean like I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah,
but the thing is like just kind of taking away their masculinity.
Yeah.
Like what it means to be a man. Like what they always thought was meant to be a man. And a lot of guys were kind of going into that, but I think like, when one extreme meets another, it's just like that's just what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So okay. So I want to understand this like back, like what it, like maybe the mindset of these people who are resisting this whole like I don't know. Let's say this is how they view it. This is how they view that like society's trying to take a man's power, all this stuff, and then this is their pushback, right? I just want to understand though, like what is it in society that's happened that made men think this way, because like all I've seen is like, hey, like women should have more rights. Women, should be listened to more. They should be believed more. And, like they should have like, equality, all this stuff. So what is it about any of those things that like take away from a man,
I mean, I don't know personally, but I would say that it's, once you have something like any kind of power is like if there's quote unquote a power of 100 and like 95 of it was with men and then 5 was with women and then like power is going away from men, like now let's say it's 70-30, they're gonna feel a certain way and like, hey, we want that back, like you give it back to us. That's what I think.
Yeah. And I know you're playing like devil's advocate, obviously, like you don't believe that, but like let's just say like okay, you're that guy, right, who thinks that. I mean, like, I don't know, how is this an extreme, though? Like, how is, like, giving women power, giving women, like, these things, how is that an extreme? Like, I think, like, I would understand if people were, like, I don't know, and they're giving us estrogen or something, and, like, it's just like, okay, fine, I mean, that's an extreme.
There's people
but
like that, too, because they think, like, a lot of certain foods are, like, lowering their testosterone. Like, that's also a thing. That's, like, a part of, like nutrition Twitter now. It's like, hey, like this soy milk you're drinking is like giving you man boobs, so like you need to lower eat more foods that'll make your testosterone higher, like eat steak is not bad for you, like that kind of stuff, Liver King, like that guy's crazy, like he's an extreme, he's an extreme reaction to what like came before him. you know? That's
Which
what I
was
think.
what? Like veganism?
Yeah, like veganism. Like, oh, like you shouldn't eat animals. Like, you know, you got to be a soft, like, you know, whatever.
Okay.
He's just like,
Yeah.
no, like we're men. Like we eat meat. This is what all of our ancestors have done.
Yeah.
This is ancestral living or whatever he says.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's just a reaction to that. Like, oh, you know, like we shouldn't like eat animals or like cows do this to the environment. Like, well, no, like this is what like humans have been eating since the beginning of time. You know, like they've been slaughtering animals and eating it. They're one of the most like, you know, nutritious like foods out there is eating animal foods, you know? So I think that's like an example. But the thing is like saying that is one thing, but then acting like how Liver King acts is another thing, right? Like that's an extreme. He's like a psychopath, you know? Like he's eating raw liver on like Instagram and
on airplanes
and just like weird stuff, you know, just walks around shirtless all the time. Like that's an extreme reaction, I think. And I don't know about any like extreme quote unquote feminist movement before him, but I'm sure there was, you know. And I think that's just like there was one, and now there's this thing, and the pendulum is just going to continue swinging.
Yeah.
So, and I just think like, you know, as Muslims we're always taught like, oh, take the middle path, you know. And like I think that it's like there's like a big there's a lot of wisdom behind that. Like you can see it in everyday, you know, culture. Like I was talking about this with you last night. I'm like, oh, like, you know, I wonder if there's like a transsexual person out there who like really believes in the Second Amendment and they want the right to bear arms, or are they not allowed to think that way because they're quote unquote woke liberals, you know, and woke liberals don't think of like want guns. Yeah. So like you can only think one way or the other these days, but then like the truth lies in the middle somewhere, right?
Yeah. You brought up a quote.
Which one?
It was like from a TV show. You were like,
oh yeah, from the show that we talked about, Rami, the character named Uncle Nassim. Yeah. Like his character was sleeping with this dude, you know.
Yeah. So he plays like a closeted gay man.
He plays a closeted gay man, and then after he's talking to his partner, and his partner is this woke liberal dude, and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were, you know, a liberal Democrat," and he's like, "What is with you guys, like liberals, conservatives? You guys only think there's two ways of thinking, but there's an unlimited number of genders." Yeah. So then he's saying like, oh, it should be the opposite way of thinking.
Yeah. Everything is nuanced.
Yeah. I think like we live in a society where it pays to not be nuanced, right? Yeah. Social media, whatever we watch on TV, it's like it's supposed to be whatever keeps you glued the longest. You know? And because Instagram, TikTok, they want to sell ads, and the way to sell ads is to keep us on their platform. And the way to keep us on the platform is to give us what we like in our nafs want, which is like divisiveness and like angry people and very passionate people.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like the thing that the flaw with this argument though that you're having is like, I think a lot of these things though, like that there's an extreme reaction to, the thing that they're reacting to isn't necessarily an extreme. You know what I mean? Like, you know, okay, there's like this whole like feminist movement and stuff, and, you know, like women should, you know, have like more equal rights, equal pay, all this stuff. I don't understand why that's viewed as an extreme. You know, like it's not like we're saying men can't work.
I'm not familiar with what like extreme feminist examples are, but I'm sure there are.
Of course there are.
So I'm saying that it's a reaction to that, not to the person saying, oh yeah, you know, we should have like equal rights. It's the person who's saying like, no, women are taking over the world type stuff. Like we're taking over everything. Like, like, oh, I only vote for a female president. Like, yo, like chill out. Like, what are you talking about? You know, that's an extreme. Yeah.
The thing, I guess, you know, like, so last weekend, like, I watched Barbie, okay? And you did not. But I tried to limit how much commentary videos I watched afterwards because I didn't want to, like, bring it up, and I didn't want, like, my views to be swayed. But a few things that I would see were from like, Muslim conservatives and, Muslims and, Fox News, all the stuff that they would be like, Barbie has an agenda. Barbie is like, trying to, I don't know, like they would say like really weird stuff about like what like, Greta's like viewpoint was and everything. And there was like this extreme pushback. Like I saw like there was like this Muslim one who was like, don't let your kids watch Barbie and stuff. Because like, they're trying to like, I don't know. They were like they're just trying to push things, on people, and it made no sense to me because after I watched that movie, I was like, this actually humanized a whole like multiple movements. I feel like, okay, so yeah, obviously the movie was about like how what like women deal with and everything. That was like the big point, but she actually like humanized like the red pill movement in a weird way. Like she like there's like a plot point where like like Ken in the movie and stuff realizes like he has been treated like badly by Barbie this whole time, and he like reacts really harshly, and he's like, oh, men are gonna men in our world rule the world, and like this is what we need to go to, this is how we're gonna do it. And the okay, like spoiler alert, like you can skip this if you still want to see it, but essentially the whole idea was like, well, you shouldn't have your entire self-worth wrapped up in another person. That was the whole lesson to Ken, is like you shouldn't care what Barbie like thinks of you this much, and that's what's making you go crazy. And like that's how I saw it, and I thought it was like, oh, really interesting, because it was humanizing like why he felt this way and why he wanted to do the things he did. And it's like, in the end of the day, he wasn't supposed to be seen as the bad person. And I thought it was like super interesting because it also almost put like a little bit of blame on the girl character too, like like she kind of like took him for granted and all this stuff, and that's what she says and apologizes for it. It's like one of those things though. It's like I feel like there is a side to a lot of stuff that like overreacts to things that no one is doing, like no one cares about, or no one I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes there's a reaction to things that don't even exist.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the like it's a piece of art, right? So people will like take it. It's a subjective thing, and people look at it differently, and they come with their preconceived notions. Like you may have went in like with a blank slate or whatever, or you may have went in with your own preconceived notions.
I went in with a preconceived notion, like, oh, this movie like is probably gonna try to push something. You should probably they have like a very certain like thing that their message that they're trying to send, but then like that's not all what the movie did, and so I was really surprised that there was like this much backlash on it. And I feel like I'm usually on the side of like, I'm very aware of like what like, like not subliminal messaging, but I'm aware of like, what things are trying to sell, and like, or like what like, mindsets or thoughts that, movies are trying to convey. So I was really surprised that was the reaction to the movie.
Yeah, I think maybe in that case, like people knew that it was going to be a very popular movie, so they just kind of wanted to react to it and like get views, like, oh, Barbie, and they went into the idea like, oh, Barbie is definitely going to be like some really woke feminist thing, so me as a manly man needs to go and attack it, you know? And maybe they were just looking for something, and maybe it wasn't there, and they were just making stuff up. I don't know, like but they knew it was going to be a popular thing. They knew that people were looking for their reaction to that thing. Like that dude Ben Shapiro watched it. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, and I'm sure he went in like thinking like, okay, like I'm gonna like attack the crap out of this movie and get a ton of views, and then like maybe he didn't find that many things, or I don't know. I didn't watch it, right? But whatever, he probably made like a 20-minute video on it just talking about it, because you need to have a reaction to Barbie. It's the biggest movie of the year so far, right? So like, and it's a movie where it's like, you would assume that it's super feminist, woke, trying to indoctrinate young girls and young men all over. So I think that maybe that's what it was. But like, you can't go and not react to it. These guys aren't going into the movie thinking like, okay, like I'm going to watch it and then decide if I want to make a video on it. They're going into the movie like, I need to make a video on this movie to get views, to pay the bills,
Yeah.
I don't even think like these people think like the way that the stuff that they spew, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean that whole thing about Fox News came out, like about their newscasters.
Yeah, there's like a few of them like attacking Trump, and then on
Yeah.
TV they'll be like, "Yo, Trump is great."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you how like
Yeah.
media cannot be trusted. Like, you need to kind of, you know, like, it's fake news.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So going back to the whole Andrew Tate thing. So he converted, and Allah Ya'lam, like what his intentions were, obviously, and I'm gonna go like I'm just gonna assume they were good, and he found the D and all this stuff. I guess like, wouldn't the worry be though is like, did he join this religion because he saw things that aligned with his point of view within the religion?
I mean, it would depend on what parts of his point of view, right?
Yeah. So I guess like, again, the few clips I would watch of him and stuff, and it seemed like he had a very big following that was Muslim, it just, I think like that would be my worry is like, or even like what other people would see from this is like, this guy had this view and he went from being, I think, atheist to following a religion.
Yeah.
And the religion also has a stereotype of having these views. You know what I mean? It's like, of all, like, I don't know. I just, I don't know. What do you think of that? Like, do you see some weird, like,
honestly, I don't think it's like any of our business to even think about it. I think what you said at the beginning is correct. Like, whether, we have to assume that his conversion is, like, legitimate. We need to accept him as a brother of Islam, and that's it. Like, there's other things that you can say, like, hey, like, maybe, when you first convert, you shouldn't make videos about talking about Islam, like, because you may or may not know that much yet, That's one thing I think you can criticize him on, but besides that, like, whether he came in...
Has he done that? Has he been making videos?
Not talking about, like, oh, this is, like, how to be a Muslim, but, like, like, he's been making videos, he's been being interviewed, but I feel like, once you very publicly convert, I think it's like, and you already have so much influence and you have so much power, you should kind of take a step back. But again, back to the point I was saying in the beginning, it doesn't even matter if he takes a step back, because a video from 2 years ago might go viral of him saying some crazy stuff. Yeah. And then there'll be Muslims being like, look at Andrew Tate, and he's a Muslim now and he's still saying this. And people are like, no, this was 2-3 years ago, dude. Like, but this is no regulation,
Yeah.
Something that I may have recorded when I was like, 21-year-old. I mean, I don't look the same, but like, and it came out now, like I would look like I'm a crazy person, but times change, people's viewpoints change. So I just think like as Muslims, we should set the example of just being like, show them a lot of leniency. Being a new Muslim is very difficult, and just kind of go from there.
So, like we're talking about like the reaction to, certain movements. And so, like with the whole like, feminism thing, there was like the red pill movement, all this stuff. But it's like, in a weird way, it's like, doesn't that kind of show the fragility of like a man's ego? If like, again, it's like the whole like, oh, women were getting rights, and then men were like, oh, you're taking rights away from us, and like if that was a reaction to it, I feel like, I don't know, I have just noticed like, and again, obviously this is going to be very biased, but like I feel like men's like ego has become fragile in a way that like has just been like very difficult to navigate. And I think this kind of touches also on like, women getting married and stuff. So, like alhamdulillah, like, I mean, I have a lot of very successful friends, and like I've talked to them about this, like when it comes to like even like meeting guys or talking to guys and stuff, like a lot of them, especially if they have like high paying jobs, really have to like undersell themselves or really like make themselves small so they don't like scare off this person, because you know it's like the immediate assumption is I feel like even like when I would talk to people, like it's like, you know, I would come in like assuming this, or like I feel like the guys would just assume they thought I was like, or I thought of myself as like amazing, you know, and I was better than you and stuff. So I would like really humble myself like as soon as I start talking to someone, and that was all just for their ego, you know. And like even like when it came to like, you know, how much money I would make and all this stuff, like I would just really try to undersell everything and be like, oh, you know, like I don't care about my job, and just, you know, say things because I was just so worried that they thought I was like I was very like not you know, like intense, or like, you know, very like, I don't know. I just feel like, and like this is like the case for a lot of my friends too, is they're like a lot of men are like very put off by people who like, or by women who end up being like very successful in their careers or end up making more money, not because of anything that they're doing or saying, just the fact that they have it, because immediately the assumption is like, well, this is going to detract from me, like this is not like a benefit in their eyes at all, like, oh, my wife would be successful, my wife would make a lot of money, it's like this in some weird way takes away from who I am as a man. And like I just think that like dynamic is so weird, and like I don't know, I just, is there like, and I mean like I just feel like there needs to be like a new movement in a way where like we're creating a generation of men that are confident enough, or like are secure enough that when they see things like that, that's actually like that they feel like it actually adds to their life, not detracts from them. So when they see a woman in power, they see that as like a good thing, not like, oh, this would take away from my manhood or something.
Yeah. I think, well, that's a lot to take in, one. And two, I think there may be like a lot more nuance in what you're saying. One, there probably are a lot of guys who are just insecure. And maybe men and humans are just insecure in general, and like this is the first time they're being challenged in that way, and we're seeing it in action now. And two, I think the idea of, you know, a woman having a very successful career to a man, I think a lot of men think that when they hear of that, they think, oh, a career-oriented woman means she is not going to want to take care of kids, like she's not going to want to be a mother like full-time type thing, or two, she might not even want kids type stuff. And I think a lot of men want that in their wife, and like the same way that a woman wants their man to work, you know,
or like, to provide
and to, you know, be there in that way. Like if like think about it in the opposite context, right? Like let's say there was a guy who was like putting himself out there, and he didn't have a job, and he didn't like want to ever work, and he just wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. I think a lot of women, a lot of them, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them would be like, yeah, no thanks, you know?
Okay.
So I think that, but then there's also, I think, a group of guys that are just might just be very insecure, and we'll talk about that specifically, because I think the other case is like they're just like kind of,
there's like an assumption,
there's an
about
assumption,
career women,
and there may be some truth in their assumption with certain number of these career oriented women. I'm not saying your friend specifically, or, you know, whatever, but they're like, it may be true in some cases, so they're just kind of like, you know, I'm gonna stay away from that kind of stuff and just like talk to women who aren't that career oriented. So, but to say that, I think humans in general are just, they grow up thinking like, oh, I have this to provide, I am this kind of person, and then when someone comes into life and kind of, you know, takes over that position, it hurts anyone, I think.
I remember we talked about this, like when, you know, we were like getting to know each other, married and stuff, is like, I hate the mentality of people being too busy for their lives, because I know people with 80-hour jobs per week, like who work 80 hours a week, who know how to make time for the things that are important in their lives. And I know people who work 40 hours or 30 hours a week who don't know how to do that. That's a character flaw. That has nothing to do with your job.
I don't even think it's a character flaw. I think this is some people are just not. They're not good.
Yeah, but again,
thing.
but I don't think that has anything to do with their job, though.
Yes, but I'm saying, like the baseline assumption is that that person is going to be too busy to do certain things. That's it. That's all I'm saying. That's the basic assumption. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that's the way it is.
No, but it is wrong, though.
I'm not,
you can just say it's wrong.
I'm saying that's the way it is.
But you can, but I'm saying, but you can say it's wrong.
I am not a judge. I'm not anything like this. Okay, so what I'm saying is that's the way it is. So we have to just the way it is. And then if you're a woman who maybe like very successful in their career, and you're talking to a guy, you need to immediately address it. And that's like just the way it is. Like, I'm not saying. So
you're saying you just need to immediately say, "Hey, I am capable of being a mother." Like within the first few, that's what it is. So you're saying right that now, is what the concern is.
Like right now, I work, like 60 hours a week. But when I have a kid, I'm definitely gonna cut down my hours so I can make time for having a family and being a mother.
So you're saying all of this revolves around the idea of having kids. Yes. Like if it does, then that's fine. I think that's a great solution. So from now on, if you're a female who is who has like what's considered like a lucrative job, or like you make a lot of money and you've noticed men are intimidated by you, as long as you can say within the first 3 sentences, "Hey, by the way, like I'm capable of being a mother and spending time with my kid," that's gonna get rid of all the issues that you're having. That's great. That's a great solution. I don't think that's what it is, though.
I don't think you want to deal with the guys who that wouldn't solve it for. That means you would be dealing with a guy who's just generally insecure. Yeah. Then you don't.
That's what I'm saying, though. Is that they're just insecure.
Then why would you want to talk to someone like that? Why would you want to be married to someone?
Why are there so many men like that, though?
You just ignore them because they're like insecure people. That's all. That's all you have to do. Like, why would you want to like solve a problem for a guy that's like clearly has some issues, but it'll solve the problem for a guy who doesn't have those issues? Yeah. So they would be like, oh, like I get it now. Okay, like she is career oriented, but she understands that what priorities are. Yeah. Like then, like they'll be able to continue a conversation. Yeah. But like if it's a guy who's like, oh no, she makes like this much more money than me, and I'm insecure about it. Then why would you even want to talk to that guy? Just leave him alone. Yeah. Go let him be like a incel.
I number one, I feel like that's just a majority of guys, though. Like they don't view. I think
every guy I know that like even talks about like like a girl making more money. The immediate assumption is that like it's because she wouldn't take care of the kids like as much as I would want them to. I'm like, but that's not if that issue is addressed immediately, maybe not within the first 3 sentences, maybe between the first 5, but you need to address it. That's what I'm saying. You can't just go and like assume that they're like this holistic, amazing person who understands everything about you already. Yeah. But yeah, this was a good episode.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. I think, and we were saying the same thing, but my point was, like, why do these guys exist, and like, how can we raise a better generation?
It's the same reason why there's crazy women who exist. So it's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Like, what you want everyone to be perfect?
No, I just think that this is an epidemic though. Of men though, because the thing is men like really need to change the way they think, because like we're in a world now where women are becoming more and more successful. That's an objective thing, right? Like there's just like I think like for the first time in like the last few years, like there's more like women in medical school than there are men and all this stuff. Like this is just gonna keep happening, right? So we can't have the same mentality of, well, I'm a man, I need to make more money, I need to provide all this stuff, while looking for someone who can only be like beneath me on paper or whatever. Like that's just not going to work. Like we're always going to have a crazy disparity then,
and we're always going to have crazy guys, and we're also always going to have crazy girls. So that's just the way life is, man. Nothing's perfect, and yeah. All right, so I just wanted to close this off by talking to the folks out there. As you know, as you guys think, actually, our podcast is free. It's actually not free. We do ask for something in return, but it's not U.S. dollars. It's Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding. We're asking for our viewers and listeners out there to please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Subscribe to us there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe or follow us on Instagram. And yeah, you can just pick like 2 of those 4 things and we'd be happy. And then we'll continue making these podcasts. But there is a payment and a lot of you guys are due. So yeah, that's all I got. This was a fun episode. Yeah, I'm going to go watch some Andrew Tate videos.